today I'm joined by some really incredible chiptune artists that I've met over the past year. And I think MAG is just I'm experiencing this now for the first time at MAGFest, where I'm actually getting to meet these people in real life. And I actually, last night when we were just hanging out in a hotel room, all talking about what trackers we use and and just really nerding out over this stuff. And it was just
Be it.
I was just so. Oh, what's good? Oh, okay. Oh, amazing.
You test it. I don't know where it's plugged into or if the channel's on.
It sounds good. I heard a little crackle, so I think we're in good shape. So, this is a really special time that we all get to meet in person and talk about this stuff, and everyone here is super passionate about this art form. So,
I'm not.
I guess before, what's up?
No, Jeff. This is also half a shit posting panel, so get ready for that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I guess first, we should kind of establish what is chiptune. Does everyone here have some familiarity with chiptune? Does anyone have a volunteer definition of what they think chiptune is? Yeah, go for it.
So not exclusive to just 8-bit. It's sort of kind of like MIDI arranged kind of sound effects that are pitched differently that they're kind of edited.
Okay. Yeah. That definitely falls in the category. The way I think about it is, from the 70s to the early 2000s, and I'm not sure if that's the exact date range, but gaming companies were designing sound chips to play music and sound effects in the games, right? This was before you could put streamed audio into a video game. So people had to be really creative with how they got audio into the games, music and whatever. So they were basically making synths for these consoles. And chiptune, in my opinion, is any music that utilizes those synths that were made for those consoles. And if anyone disagrees with that or has anything they would like to add to that, please go right ahead.
There's a little bit of ambiguity. There isn't really a hard cutoff to where chiptune ends. It's more defined as an era, or it's inspired by an era. Which, yes, from the 70s to the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I would definitely say it's somewhere between music targeting the old hardware and music inspired by the hardware.
Right. Yeah. So I have a really distinguished panel here with me today, and before we continue the discussion, we're going to listen to an excerpt by each of us on here, but each of us is going to give an intro. So we'll start all the way at the end with R.R. Teal. Give it up.
My name is R.R. Teal. I'm a chip tuner from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I mostly do kind of family tracker stuff, but I guess since I've done more FM stuff than anybody here, I guess I'm kind of designated as the FM guy here, even though I haven't done that much. But I kind of can give a brief synopsis of Family Tracker in 4 words or less. Family Tracker is the one that makes NES music. But I'm mostly associated with Mega Man related stuff. I'm doing a Mega Man fan game right now, Mega Man Perfect Blue. That's kind of my main big boy project that's going on. But yeah.
Yeah. And what's your piece called?
It's called The Phantasm Nemesis.
Okay, here we go.
A couple years old.
Let's hope this works. Right.
Bring back.
That really wonderful piece, and this is also part of the Mega Man Perfect
Yeah.
Blue project, right?
Shouldn't have picked something so long.
You want to talk a little bit about it, like what you used to make it, and like
Yeah,
what's
it's made in Family Tracker using the Namco 163 expansion, which it adds wavetable channels to the NES. I believe 8, but you can customize the amount you use. I'm using 5, and yeah, it's Mega Man music. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, sick. So for those of you who don't know, wavetable channels, that's like a different type of synthesis. So there's like subtractive synthesis, wavetable synthesis, FM synthesis, and there were...
Yeah, I said wavetable as if everyone knew what that meant.
Yeah, you know, wavetables.
Yeah. But
80s wavetable.
exactly. Vapor wavetable. It's a really cool thing about the NES is that there was expansion audio made, and now that we have the tools to make this stuff ourselves, you see a ton of people really exploring that lane, and I would definitely point to Teal as one of my personal favorites for this particular expansion chip, the N163.
It's the NES's versatility that makes it so good to use.
There's actually some really people have done some pretty, like that guy Vinyl Cheese. He's a great chiptune artist.
Yep.
He's done some really
Check him out.
intense stuff with N163 where literally like drawing in audio samples. I mean, I think he uses some tool for that, right?
There's like an expansion. There's an add-on for Audacity that lets you do it
Yeah.
easily. I don't know how to use it
It's
though.
really annoying to use. I've tried.
Well, anyway, give it up for RR Teal. That was a great piece, right? Okay, next we'll move on to Donut Shoes.
Hi, I'm Donut Shoes. Hey. I got to nerd out for just a second about RTL and the Family Tracker. It's amazing
killing me.
stuff. Also, if some of those sounds kind of sound familiar to you, first of all, it's the NES, but also Family Tracker famously is the program that the artist Vert used to make the whole soundtrack to Shovel Knight.
Yep.
So that might ring a bell to you.
couple
But
other
anyways,
things.
I'm Donut Shoes. I'm a chiptune artist from Connecticut. I've made chiptune on all sorts of different platforms, but currently my primary platform is on LSDJ, or Little Sound DJ for the Game Boy. I think, we were talking about this before, I think I'm a representative here on stage as, I represent more of the club type music, stuff that you're gonna see later on tomorrow night at the Chip Rave at midnight. Do not miss it, it's gonna be a blast. And so I make that kind of club style music on the Game Boy, and I've been making chiptune music since 2007.
And what do you want to talk about your piece?
Yeah, which one did I send you? I forget.
Presto Spookissimo.
Oh, Presto Spookissimo, yes. So this is a song that was put out by on a compilation album, a joint compilation album with Hyperpop Records and Despop. This is if this sounds like it's not seasonally appropriate, that's because I made it for Halloween. So we're gonna have a little Halloween moment in early January. So go for it.
Here we go.
Never too early.
Thank you. Are you chilled to your very bones?
So is this Little Sound DJ?
So that is Little Sound DJ on the Game Boy. A little bit more background on that system. It's been around for quite a long time, and I wish I knew the actual history of it. I could like spout about it right now, but I don't remember. But in the past, say, 5 years or so, there's been kind of a renaissance in updates made to LSDJ. There isn't a better time to get into LSDJ if you're looking to making chiptune music. You can download an emulator, and the ROM is free on littlesounddj.com. And it's a really fun platform for making chiptune. It's more limited than say FamiTracker or some of your other chiptune platforms. There are only 4 sound channels on it, 2 pulse wave channels, which are the beep boops. There's a wave channel, which is kind of like wavetable synthesis, and then a noise channel, and that's it. And so it's a really fun way to get like ideas down quick. If you have a Game Boy, you can load it onto a cartridge and make music directly on the Game Boy. And so yeah, it's a very fun platform.
The results speak for themselves.
Yeah, and also, can't you do something similar with the N163 where you can put like samples into the wave channel?
Yeah.
That's how Vinyl Cheese does it.
Yeah, and so this is something that I've been experimenting with too a lot recently. Samples can be, it's weird because it's not like putting samples on a Game Boy. There are programs out there that are taking your sample and crunching it into a kind of wavetable format on LSDJ. That's called a kit, and so you can do all sorts of really cool stuff. And yeah, it's the other thing you can do with it is with LSDJ is you can with literally a Game Boy link cable, you can connect 2 Game Boys and sync them together. So you can have like 8 channels, double the amount of channels
That's how people do that.
Oh yeah, that's how they do it. So
give it up for Donut Shoes, guys. All right, Langle, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Langle. I probably made my first chiptune in 1998 with Impulse Tracker. I think it's my best recollection. As music, I go by Knox, B-Knox, but it used to be Baron Knoxbury, but everybody spelled it wrong. And also starting in 2006 as Puke 7, I've been running Battle of the Bits.
Yeah. So, Battle of the Bits, for those of you who don't know, is an incredibly cool place on the internet. There's just an endless number of super inspiring chiptune artists and electronic artists in general uploading music there all the time, and I cannot stress how valuable of a resource that has been for me as someone who is very interested in learning chiptune, but also somebody who's interested in expanding their compositional and arranging vocabulary. I mean, I was just talking about Langle. There's a bunch, and I'll show something in a little bit that I worked on with somebody that I met through Battle of the Bits. So even if you don't want to, like the battles you want to talk about the battles a little bit, like what goes on with the.
Well, we got minor and major battles. The minor ones are anywhere from 1, 2, or 4 hours, and the major battles will run a week or a month or several months. And we can have the smaller ones have like one format, and the larger ones will have multiple formats. We just launched Winter Chip 18. It's an annual battle, and that's got 20-some formats targeting a lot of different consoles, and also just more open stuff like MIDI files and old school DOS trackers and stuff like that.
Yeah, and another really cool thing about the battles, like with these like formats that you're talking about, people are actually making music in the file formats that are native to the hardware of these like old consoles. And Battle of the Bits is just a massive archive of like all this original music that's made for the old hardware. And I just think that is so freaking cool.
It's almost 60,000 entries right now.
Yeah, unbelievable. So if you're interested in learning chiptune, but even if you're just interested in like getting new ideas as a composer or a producer, I cannot stress enough that you should definitely check out Battle of the Bits. Do you want to talk about your piece that you?
Yeah, so about a year ago, I ran a Kickstarter for an NES game. I wasn't really taking it seriously. I just wanted to get paid to learn how to make a PCB. And then I decided to take it seriously, and I worked on it for 8 months. And so this music is an abridged soundtrack, and it's all procedurally generated except for the bass line and the boss fight actually has sequence data.
Yeah. So I'll play it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Drop it.
All right. Wow. And Lango, you recorded that example on hardware. Is that correct?
I used the sound test and the option screen.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. We'll give it up for Lango. We'll definitely circle back to Battle of the Bits because it's a definitely an important topic for this discussion. Let's move on. This is Lumen.
Hi, this is Lumen, aka Lumenatine. Good to meet you all. Chiptune musician from Florida. I work primarily in Family Tracker. I've been doing it for almost 9 years now. God, it has not felt that long, actually. I started doing Family Tracker around 2014 because of a little-known indie game called Shovel Knight. Particularly inspired me to make the jump into Family Tracker. Prior to that, I was working in an FL studio using more shamefully, well, it depends on how your opinion on sound fonts are, but I would kind of like rip up sound fonts from online websites and be like, wow, this sounds pretty passable. I kind of want to make a big deal out of this, but there was kind of like a ceiling that I kind of hit with FL Studio that wasn't really satisfying my need for the kind of music that I'm into, which is particularly Family Tracker music. So I made the jump instinctively into Family Tracker, and it's been a hell of a ride since then. I've been working on a lot of contracted out indie games. Amori being one of the bigger games that I got to work on a couple of years ago. That was a big surprise to me. I also worked on Unbeatable recently that you can check out on the show floor up in the second floor. Very cool music rhythm game as well. I focus primarily in the VRC6 style, which of course is also very popularly put out there by Shovel Knight. And yeah.
Yeah. Which piece did you want to look at? You sent me two.
I sent you two, but
DPPT?
yeah.
Okay.
So my showcase is going to be the lake theme from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah. And another thing, for those, Lumen mentioned the VRC6. So VRC6 is an expansion audio chip that Konami made for the NES, which gave you, I think, is it two extra pulse channels and a saw channel,
Gives
right?
you 2 pulses in the
Yeah.
saw.
So that,
7-step saw.
makes it a little bit easier to make full chords that way without arpeggiating yourself into oblivion, so
It was the Castlevania 3 one.
yeah.
That's how most people know it.
In particular, with this arrangement, I did use the VRC6, but I also used the Namco N163, similarly to what RR Thiel uses as well.
Yeah.
I
they stole my thing.
imported the sound from Pokemon Gold and Silver to wavetables for this. I used a wavetable popularly that was used in the National Park theme of Pokemon Gold and Silver, and there's also a square channel that was also used in the route themes for Pokemon Gold and Silver as well.
Very cool. Let's take a listen.
Thank you. So the biggest source of inspiration for me would be, in modern times, would be, of course, Jake Kaufman. He is the biggest reason why I'm pretty much here today.
Yeah.
The Shovel Knight soundtrack was an incredibly pivotal point in my life when I heard it. That made me go, you know what, this is kind of what I want to do. I want to sound like what he does, but give it my own twist. I emphasize a lot more on the percussion and the bass aspect of my arrangements as opposed to like the more grandiose kind of style. I'm not sure how to properly explain it, honestly.
No, I think that's a good explanation. I was actually going to ask, who do you look to for arranging inspiration and technique? And it sounds like you're taking some stuff from him, but you're kind of making your own decisions too with how you're allocating the sounds.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very nice. Give it up for Lumen.
Hi everyone, I'm Steven, also known as Bran, also known as Bran Flakes. I also primarily use FamiTracker and mostly do covers, video game music, a little bit of anime music as well, and a couple of other miscellaneous things. I've been working on it since around 2010 is kind of when I started using FamiTracker. Prior to that, I was using FL Studio and some cheap plugins that came with it to get like something that sounded sort of 8-bit. And then from there, I decided to use something that's a little more authentic sounding. But I've pretty much been doing it on and off for about 13 years. and stopped for a while before 2014, 2015, where, like Lumen, I was also inspired by Jake Kaufman and the Shovel Knight soundtrack. He was definitely a big inspiration for a lot of us. Still an inspiration to this day. So when it comes to my sound, I do try to, I kind of started out trying to emulate that and then kind of branched out into something I can really identify as my own sound. I also use a FamiTracker and the VRC6 chip most of the time. I did use the 2A03, which is kind of like the, I guess, default, has 3 or 2 pulse wave channels, 1 triangle, 1 noise, and a sample channel. And then I kind of strayed away from that because the limitation was was a little bit much for me. I didn't really like to kind of, as you said, arpeggiate myself into oblivion. But it's a sound I really like, it just didn't really quite work for me. So that's pretty much my background. Yeah, this is, what I sent is an arrangement from an anime called Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt. Kind of the main song from that anime called Fly Away. And so a work in progress, but it's something I've been sitting on for a while.
Great, let's take a listen.
Thank you.
I didn't get a clap for my song. The audience is playing favorites here.
You were the warm-up, sorry.
Make clappable music.
Wow. Well, would you like to talk about, like, I'm just curious, like, where do you get your arranging style from? Like, who are, like, I know Jake Kaufman is big. Is there anybody else? And, like, what were you thinking about when you wrote this? I hear a lot of techniques in here, like side chaining and some, like, really,
That was actually one of the things I was focusing on when I made this arrangement or started working on it, was there's a lot of side chaining in the original track, but that's not really something I've tried to emulate myself. So I figured it'd be a fun challenge to do that with the side chaining, to have the bass that is mostly sawtooth in this case, that interacts with the kick drum. So the kick drum kind of mutes the bass a little bit each time on each beat. So I thought it was something that would be kind of interesting to replicate.
yeah, it's excellent. Everyone. Another interesting thing about working in trackers, working in FamiTracker, is you don't have, I mean, who here is messes with music production? Who here does? Okay. So everybody knows what effects plugins are, right? So in FamiTracker, you do not have effects plugins. You basically have your synth. And you have to, if you want an effect, you have to do everything manually. So delay is manual, side chaining is manual, everything is, I mean, there's certain effects that obviously are impossible. But, but there are some people who do some really mind-blowing stuff with FamiTracker. But so yeah, when Steven talks about how he was applying or doing sidechaining, every value for volume and everything is typed out in meticulous detail. But that's actually one of the advantages of working in a tracker, is that you have such granular control over every aspect of the music. So even if you're not interested in making chiptune yourself, I highly recommend just sitting down with a tracker and trying to write something with it, because I think taking yourself out of your comfort. Oh, geez, now I'm speaking properly into the mic. Sorry if you couldn't hear me before. But taking yourself out of your comfort zone and putting yourself in a box with like really specific limitations can really break you out of bad habits that you have in writing, or not even bad habits, but just things that you do over and over and over again. So like, I have a story, this like relates to chiptune, but it's something that I learned in a not at all chiptune context. So I studied jazz in college, and this jazz pianist, Sullivan Fortner, who, in my opinion, might be one of the best alive. You should all go listen to him. He's absolutely unbelievably good. He came and did a master class, and he played a Herbie Hancock tune for us called Dolphin Dance. And when he played, it was the most insane arrangement of this song that I've ever heard. It sounded like Stravinsky plays Herbie Hancock. Like, it was just ridiculous. And I asked him afterwards, have you ever played it that way before? And he said, no. And I almost didn't believe him. But I said, like, so how do you get to the point where you can improvise something like that? And he's like, I'll show you. So he had me sit down at the piano. He's like, I want you to play All the Things You Are, which is another standard. But in your left hand, you got to play stride in 3/4, and the only chords you can play are first inversion triads. And in your right hand, you can only play melodies, and they can never exceed a minor third. Like, no interval can ever exceed a minor third. And obviously, I bombed immediately. Like, it was, I like folded within like 2 seconds. And I was just like, how do you do that? And he sits down and just does it. And I was like, can you do it in another key? And he did it in another key. And he's like, and he said, if you give yourself challenges like this every day, where you put yourself in these like insane boxes, you're gonna be more creative, and you're gonna come up with new things. And this totally applies to this. If you're always working in Ableton and you have access to everything that you like to use, you're gonna gravitate to all the stuff that you're used to using, and you're gonna write the same stuff all the time. And that was definitely true for me before I started getting into trackers and getting into like different sound trips and writing for. So having these limitations, it's been endlessly fun for me to explore and check out. And anyway,
I'd like to point out real quick that if you are intimidated by trackers, there are ample resources online that show you how to get into them and what you need to do. Specifically with FamiTracker, I would point to a tutorial series on YouTube by a guy called Ben Burns. It's probably the kind of like the most recent, like updated tutorial series on getting into FamiTracker. And I really, we all encourage everybody to try some of this out, because it will really, enhance your creativity overall in more ways than you would think.
absolutely.
The whole thing about putting yourself in a box, I think, and like growing complacent, I think that can also be said of most trackers, because with FamiTracker, like the NES, you have a number of different like expansions to use. There's like VRC6, Namco, Disk System, a couple others, and like that alone is a lot more than what most of these sound chips get. Like there are trackers for like Commodore 64, which is extremely limiting. Like with very like clear limitations.
It's got filters though.
It has filters.
It's got one filter.
And then there are trackers for like the Master System sound chip, which is just trash. It's a horrible sound, but like people still are able to make good music with it.
Yeah.
And as for learning FamiTracker, I happen to be doing a FamiTracker tutorial panel in the Makerspace tomorrow night at 11. So,
Great. Yeah, check that out. Also, I guess I'll properly introduce myself now. My name is Jake. I go by Button Masher. That's my artist name. I got into chiptune sometime in like 2018. I was not really able to figure out how I was going to make any impact as a pianist. And a lot of people say that I'm way too hard on myself and I'm a fine pianist, whatever. But like, I was playing SNES one day, the SNES, I was playing Gradius 3, and I was just like, man, this is crazy music. Like, what if I had used this as my sound and like performed with this live. Like, how crazy would that be? And that pretty much sent me down a rabbit hole. So some of you might know me through Button Masher. Last year with Charlie Rosen, we won the first Grammy for a video game cover for Kirby Superstar. Thank you. And I'm the associate professor of jazz studies at El Camino College. And my piece is, so usually I would show an SNES piece because I'm really interested in the SPC 700, which is the sound chip for the SNES. I've written a ton of music for it, but if you guys were at my set last night, or if you're gonna be at my set at Chip Space on Saturday at 7, which RR Teal is also on that bill, you will have plenty of chances to hear my SNES music. I decided that I will present something that's unreleased, that I'm super excited about, that I worked on with somebody from Battle of the Bits, a great chiptune artist named Dammy Fortune. So this is an arrangement of Thelonious Monk's Evidence, which Thelonious Monk is a jazz pianist, and I just thought it would be really cool to make a chiptune arrangement of this. And I was inspired by my good friend over there, RR Teal, to really mess with the N163 sound chip. So after I finished the arrangement, I thought, it would be so cool if I could get a saxophone solo on this, but in FamiTracker. So Dammy Fortune, who, again, an absolutely mind-blowing chiptune artist, has come up with like a technique to take full audio recordings, divide them into DPCM channels, and reassemble them in the DPCM channel for the NES. And we took this solo that my good friend Henry Solomon took on this song, and we put it in the DPCM channel, and it just sounds amazing. So this is Evidence by Thelonious Monk, arranged by myself and Dammy Fortune. Oh. Come on. What's going on? Oh, of course.
This is when we all go, Chiptune!
I don't know why this is not opening. Okay.
It's another app you can open it with.
Let's see.
New computers are dumb, which is why we make old music on old computers.
Yeah, exactly. This is a real drag. I don't know what is happening. Does anyone else? Okay. Everyone else's music works except for mine. That's great.
Is it online anywhere?
No, it is not online anywhere. Okay, well, looks like you guys aren't gonna get to hear that today. So
Yeah, you know how that Thelonious Monk sounds, that song sounds. Just imagine that, but chiptune.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I will play something else that just came out on my recent album, Secret Levels. This is a Super Nintendo tune that I wrote using Run Saber sound fonts. That's definitely an example of a piece where I'm like writing and I'm like, it's not crazy enough. I gotta make it crazier. Like it's not ambitious enough. Like, and I sometimes I like chicken out playing that one live because I'm like, people are just gonna be confused. Like, but I'm the SBC 700 is a really unique sound chip in that it uses samples, so it's not like using oscillators, like generating, waveforms. It's using like uploaded instruments like that are like downsampled kind of. They're called .BRRs, which means bit reduced rate. And the SNES has a bunch of really interesting effects that you can use, like echo, which is like basically what they their attempt at reverb for the console. And that echo also has a fur filter, which is like an EQ for the echo. So there's like quite a lot of detail that you can get into writing SBC 700 music. There's also pitch modulation you can do, which turns the SNES into like a FM synthesis, kind of, not like a super high-powered FM synthesis with like 4 operators, but like you can turn 2 of the channels into like operators that feed into each other. Is everyone familiar with FM synthesis or? Okay, yeah, that
might be outside of the scope of this panel.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly like I'd never designed my own FM patches when I mess with FM. Like, we were talking about this last night.
This is something I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
Making your own FM instruments is a scam. Nobody should ever have to do it, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because we live in the year 2023, where every single video game that has ever been made for like the Genesis or the PC-98, any game that uses a Yamaha sound chip, has been thoroughly decompiled, and all of its every instrument you can think of is available, like if you know how to look for it. Like I picked up Devil Mask at a certain point, and I was too scared to touch Genesis music for a long time because the FM instrument editor it's a nightmare. You look at it and it's so confusing. So I didn't touch it for months, and then a friend of mine sent me a folder full of instruments from Thunder Force 4, and then I was instantly good at FM forever.
I think it's fun to roll your own.
I'm sure it is if you're good at it, but
I'm not good at it, but it's fun. Yeah, DX7. You need 2 chips to run that.
So I guess this would be a good time to talk a little bit about. This is an interesting conversation for me, like the history of chiptune and like where chiptune is now, and like what the chiptune scene might look like in a few years. So like, or not a few years, maybe like 10 years or whatever. Like the fact that this music has survived despite the fact that it's not like the center of a commercial enterprise like video game consoles anymore is a really interesting thing to me. So I guess I would just open it up for you guys to speculate on that. Like do you I mean, particularly you, Lengel, because you host a community that like makes so much music for these instruments, and I'm just curious like what your thoughts are.
I mean, I don't know how much to get into because we only have so much more time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Running any online community is a really intense thing at times. It's also a very rewarding thing.
I got it to work. Oh, no, go for it. Go for it. I will play that at the end, though. You guys deserve to hear it. So
I don't know. I've seen communities come and go, and I think we need more. And I think the online communities are driven by like events and community activities. And it takes not everybody is interested in being a leader and setting that kind of stuff up. And I mean, obviously, I've kind of been trying to take more of a back seat even in Battle of the Bits and let the community decide what we're doing next. But that was after almost 2 decades of just deciding everything. So I don't really know what I want to say. It'd be really cool if people started accumulating again. I feel like we're all siloed off, and there's a lot of different discords that don't have a lot of activity. And I don't know what the scene needs right now.
Yeah,
I think some of us have been through a lot over the past few years, and It'd be nice to see it growing again.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can speculate. I think really what the future of chiptune really could use is if you're interested in making it and you have a few friends that are interested in making it too, make that your little community. Like small group chats and stuff. And just start trading each other your songs and stuff. Like as wider as it gets and the more tinier and tinier communities you have where you're doing really cool niche things or things that you and your friend groups really liked, I think that's going to really kind of push the medium forward. We're going to see a lot more innovations and stuff that you maybe wouldn't find when, say, a community might be up under a much larger umbrella where there's sort of social pressures in this pulling you this way or that way.
Yeah. I have some thoughts. But one thing that I would like to see and that I've messed with a little bit myself is a more intense version of this. But I like seeing people take songs that aren't chiptune, make them into chiptune. I did a Super Nintendo version of Thriller with DJ Cutman. We put it out just a little while ago. We did the Reading Rainbow theme, in the style of Secret of Mana. We did. I'll get your question in just a moment. And Last Christmas. But one thing that I think would be really sick is seeing different artists from world music scenes. Has anyone ever listened to Carnatic music from South India? That's one of my. I talked about this at my MAGFest panel, but it's one of my favorite styles of music. And it's really intense rhythmic music, and it's mostly percussion. There are vocalists, and but it's very intense rhythmic music, and it would be cool to see somebody with that background get into writing chiptune and things like that. I could see that expanding the scene in a really interesting way. So it is my mission to convince people who I really admire as musicians to take a swing at Fami Tracker, because I would love to see those different things come together.
Yeah, I do think influence from different genres can really be a big benefit for chiptune, because the fact that I guess on a subconscious level, we associate chiptune with old video game music, and there's very much a sort of language to that music that is very specific. It's like Mega Man music and Mario music.
Right.
They're written in very specific ways, and a lot of a new chiptuner, their first instinct is gonna try to make something like that, I think. So to really to expand your purview of shit that influences you, I think it's healthy for any musical artist of any kind, but it would be a big benefit to chiptune, I think.
Yeah, and I think these instruments have just enormous potential in different styles, and I think everything we listened to today from this panel, just shows that. It was very, very broad group of. I don't even know. I'm tired, guys. I'm running on fumes.
A wide range of styles.
This
is an important probably distinction to make about chiptune in general. I think a lot of us up here would agree with this, and is that chiptune, you may call it a genre. The truth is, you can make many different genres of music within the chiptune scope.
Yeah.
And it is cool to see how people push those limitations. And again, I would like to just reiterate that it's right now is the best time to get into chiptune. Right now is always the best time to get into chiptune, and there's lots of avenues out there. It's also kind of getting into a bit more of a, I wouldn't say mainstream, but you're seeing things like the advent of a piece of hardware called the M8, which is a premium piece of gear that is inspired by LSDJ. And then also, if you all know about the Analog Pocket, which is like an updated Game Boy. It comes preloaded with Nano Loop, which is another Game Boy music program. And so like it is becoming like, the chiptune is growing and growing and growing and becoming more part of, the zeitgeist. That's why we have events like this where you can go see stuff at Chip Space and go see, people like Button Masher and the people going to be playing at the Chip Rave. On the big stage at MAGFest. So like, the future, the interesting thing is I think the future of chiptune is you're kind of looking at it right now. Like it's happening before our eyes.
Yeah.
Like moment by moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you guys, do you guys want to hear the recording that I was going to show you earlier? Okay. All right. We're gonna play the recording, and then I think we'll open it up for some questions for the last 10 minutes, if everyone's interested in that. Okay, so here we go. This is Evidence with a DPCM sax solo. That's it. So before we get into the Q&A, I'll just talk briefly about the arrangement, and actually more on the composition side. So Evidence is like, as you heard, like it's this melody that's like dup, bup, 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 na. It's not a ton of notes. It's just like a handful of notes for the melody, like very, very sparse and laid out. And what I basically did with this arrangement was I changed every time I played the melody, I changed the chords under the melody and based all of the material surrounding that on those reharmonizations, and that's how I got the arrangement to kind of evolve. And then that was Henry Solomon on saxophone for that. So he was a very willing volunteer, and fortunately didn't hate how he sounded after it came out through the DPCM channel. So you guys should go check him out. But anyway, can you give a round of a hand for the panel? And now we'll take some questions. So.
If I may, 1 second.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to add a little bit to the topic of the future of chiptune. So,
go for it.
as corny as it sounds, I genuinely believe that everyone in this room sitting here right now has the potential to be the future of chiptune. As corny as it seems, it's not like go out there and do your own thing. But I genuinely believe if you like what you hear from all of these extremely skilled individuals up here, let that inspire you to do your own thing. You can't be afraid to suck at this because you just kind of have to tackle it head on and be like,
chiptune sucks.
No, my God.
True, absolutely true. But the availability of resources online is making it incredibly easy, as Donut Shoes mentioned earlier, to piggyback off of what he said. There's never been a better time to get into it now, and I wouldn't be here right now talking to all of you if it weren't for the fact that I was just willing to jump through a little bit of some hoops to be able to get where I wanted to be at right now. Don't be afraid to suck is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Go out there, show off your work. Don't be ashamed. Be unabashedly unashamed about showing your work off.
Yep. All right, great. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand. Oh, did you want to say
I was going
something?
to say, we're also a resource. Like,
Yeah.
if anyone is trying to pick up FamiTracker, I'd be more than happy to just answer any questions. Like,
Yeah.
find pretty much any, I think I can speak for most of us when I say, like,
Not me.
we're
I'm
all
too
just
famous to
super
talk.
happy. Okay, except for ROTL.
I'll just point you at my community.
So if you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. I believe you had one earlier. Would you like to go first?
Yeah, there wasn't so much of a question per se, but I think it adds a little bit more to what you said about how, like, just basically the topic of the concept of applying, like, you know, kind of more analog, I guess, genres of music, or like kind of like the analog, like making those with chiptune. I was gonna say, any kind of like 8-bit, like NES or Game Boy theme you can think of, like the most popular like titles or anything you could probably think of that comes to mind. Back when they made those, what I do know is back when they made those arrangements back in the 80s and 90s, when that was sort of like just kind of emerging into the mainstream, they kind of had to like write the songs in a more acoustic way, like with more of the kind of like instruments, you know, we're kind of used to hearing, I guess, sort of like outside of chiptune or any kind of digital arrangement.
Yeah.
So that kind of acoustic element literally kind of created sort of what's more heavily recognized in sort of like the whole chiptune genre, and that is genuinely how much it adds to like the act of arranging it like digitally.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you for that. And you, so I saw your hand first.
Yeah, I had a question real quick. So I've been using Fruit Loops for 15 years.
Oh, cool.
So embedded in the piano roll and all of it.
Right.
I'm a whore for VST plugins and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I understand the intricacies and the granularity you can get with trackers.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, you don't have to choose. You can do both, you know.
My question is, I mean, I'm finding stuff like your Magic 8-bit plug, which works great.
Yeah.
There's also this company called Plug I just found. Plug, yeah.
Plogue. Yeah. Amazing company.
It's cool, I'm overwhelmed and all that.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to go learn Femicon, I want to do LSTJ. It's like, okay, well, I need to mix all this together because I use other instruments besides chiptune.
Right.
Well, do you have any recommendations or just stick to my DAW?
I've got something.
Yeah, go for it.
There's if you're kind of intimidated by things, I would recommend a program called Renoise Tracker. It's almost like a tracker DAW hybrid. It's a place where you can kind of break away from the piano roll, get used to the tracker format, but with still using all of your favorite VSTs. So you can use VST instruments in there. You can also load things up as samples in a very kind of like Amiga tracker. If I'm getting that right, I'm not really familiar with Amiga, but anyways.
That's where trackers start.
Yeah. So exactly. So Renoise, it's a cheap program of $75. There's also
That's not cheap. Not by my standards.
Sorry.
I got McDonald's money.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't
Free
mean.
version's pretty.
Yeah, it is. And there's also they make a plugin that is like that you can put into any other DAW, I believe. It's not for FamiTracker, so it's Renoise makes an additional plugin that you can that basically acts as a tracker sequencer you can use in your current DAW. But Renoise is a good way to get into it. But otherwise, you know, like most of us are saying, if you want to get into it, take the dive. Just go head first into trackers, and you know, don't be afraid to suck. You know, FamiTracker is a good starting point. Again, tons of resources. So I would recommend those two ideas.
I would also add, if you're interested in like adding a ton of different sound chips at the same time, there's a open source tracker called Furnace that can pretty much emulate every sound chip that's ever been made. And no, okay, yeah. No, that's pretty overwhelming. I mean, I've never personally done that, but yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm a longtime FamiTracker user, and I've always been interested in potentially tracking for SNES music as well. But back when I last looked at it, like maybe 5 or 7 years ago, there wasn't really a good tracker for SNES stuff yet. Like, you know, people were saying to load sound constants, open mod plug track.
Right.
Keep it to 8 channels. So in the current day, what is kind of the state of SPC?
Furnace tracker.
Yeah, so Furnace, so Furnace had the latest unstable build has Super Nintendo support. It does not have SBC export, but
Furnace tracker came out with SNES support recently.
Yeah.
And there's no SBC support, but Furnace gets updated constantly.
yes,
You got to check like every day for new updates.
yeah.
There's that VST called C700.
C7. So there's a bunch of different ways to make SNES music though, and for me personally, like even with Furnace coming out with this, I've gotten so used to a workflow. I actually make Super Nintendo music in the DAW still because I use Super MIDI Pack, which is like you can actually get a hardware render of your Super Nintendo music with that. It's like a MIDI interface that, Ableton sends MIDI data to Super MIDI Pack, and Super MIDI Pack sends the audio to your interface. It's amazing.
Or you could just use MML.
Yeah, the C700 VST is another one that's really good, and that can record to SBC, and it's for you have a lot of options at this point. Basically, you could do the open mod plug thing. Personally, that tracker is a little too difficult for me to use. We were just talking about that the other day. The controls are just all over the place, in my opinion. But yeah, Furnace is a great, if you really want to do the tracker workflow for SNES, the latest unstable build of Furnace is definitely the move. But also the C700 VST and Super MIDI Pack. Super MIDI Pack is a little expensive though. That's the only downside with that. And they don't make very many of them. It's like one guy doing it out of his house in Los Angeles. So, but yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Okay. Let's go. Yeah.
I already covered this earlier in the panel, but do you think you need like some kind of music expertise or experience to?
No.
Yeah, no.
I started using Family Tracker when I was 13, and I'd never played an instrument before. And, just keep doing it. You'll figure it out. Yeah.
I am constantly blown away by the people that I meet in this community that have never touched an instrument. And there's this cat.
So true.
There's this cat Razorek. I could literally just name people all day who are just savants in Family Tracker, just making the most incredible music and have never touched an instrument. Teal, I love how Teal puts it. He says, "This is the music of the people," because anyone can do it. Anyone can learn this stuff. So yeah, you do not need a music background. You're gonna have to do some work, listening and because your stuff is just not gonna sound good right away.
Just start making noise,
Yeah.
Start making noise.
Yep.
It can be kind of your music background. Like some people grow up playing piano. You can also just grow up learning Family Tracker.
Yep. Yep.
Absolutely.
It definitely helps to have musical background, but...
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth with me. I only started working with Family Tracker in the spring of 2021, but I have a music background, so that made it, I was able to get to work pretty quickly. But you don't need that. You don't, and I am always so impressed, and surprised, by the people who don't have that. They have such a unique perspective, and they conceptualize things in such a different way. I'm a piano player, so there's things that I gravitate towards naturally. But hearing people who their entire perspective is shaped around working in that interface it's so unique and it's so special and it's so different. And yeah, anyone can do it. It's great. So yeah, give it a try.
We got time for one more question. I think I saw, yeah.
So you brought up, I'm a bit of a beer goblin, but you brought up the MA Tracker, and I've been having a hard time trying to find one of those things anywhere. I know it's one guy that's been doing all the production work.
Yeah. You want to subscribe to their to the newsletter on the website. You can go to reverb.com and pick one up for $800. I would not recommend it because it's not worth $800.
Yeah.
But if you want to give a scalper, a little ego boost, then you can do that.
Yeah. Give it up for our panelists, guys. Thank you all so much for coming. Would you guys like to what else are you guys doing here? Is anyone? Because Teal and I are doing a set on Saturday at Chip Space. You guys should try to
Go
come.
to Chip Rave, 7 p.m.
Yeah.
Saturday at the Chip Space.
Come to Chip Rave on Saturday also, and then he's doing a Family Tracker panel at 11. You doing anything else, Lingo?
You can come down to the homebrew booth in the Indie Game Hall and play my 24 kilobit NES game.
Nice.
It's called
good.
Gruntner.
It's good.
I have stickers.
Oh,
if
yeah.
anyone wants some stickers.
All right. Thank you, guys. Everyone have a good day. Thank you all for coming.